March 30th, 2024, La Paz Department, Bolivia, the high-altitude region of Los Yungas. It's a treacherous mountain road winding through heavy fog, cloaked in darkness with barely any lighting. This route connects Bolivia's de facto capital with the humid valleys below. Here the road hugs deadly cliffs surrounded by dense vegetation, making any deviation from the path easy to miss and nearly impossible to witness. That night, during a routine patrol, officers noticed a vehicle sitting motionless on the shoulder. A white SUV nicknamed Jack by the Vakiata family was parked with its engine off and hazard lights disabled. At first glance, it looked like a minor stop, but nothing about what followed would be minor. Inside the vehicle, officers found 25-year-old Joel Perez, visibly under the influence. What seemed like a standard welfare check quickly shifted tone. The interior appeared strangely undisturbed. No shattered glass, no overturned objects. But that eerie cleanliness would soon raise red flags. Forensics would later argue it was an intentional attempt to erase biological traces. And then came the most pressing question. Where was 28-year-old Odalis Vakiata, the vehicle's owner? Joel offered an explanation that would soon serve as the foundation of a criminal investigation. He claimed that during their drive home from a festival in Takana, he and Odalis had gotten into a heated argument fueled, he said, by jealousy. According to Joel, Odalis demanded he pull over, grabbed some small cash, roughly $6 to $9, from the glove box, and walked off toward a stretch of road where local taxis sometimes passed by. But the story didn't add up. Still inside the glove box were Odalis's phone, her purse, all of her identification, and bank cards. All essential items were left behind in a locked vehicle driven by someone else. Beyond that roadside stop lay miles of pitch-black highway and unguarded cliffs. Despite this, Joel insisted she voluntarily walked off into the night without contact, without documents, without a way to reach anyone. This stark contrast between Joel's account and the harsh reality of the Yungas terrain would become central to prosecutors' case. They would later stress that abandoning all identification and the only means of communication defies the basic instincts of self-preservation, especially in such a dangerous mountain region. Joel Perez's version of events began to unravel before he was even formally interrogated. The timeline of phone calls that night would mark the first cracks in his story. At approximately 11:30 p.m., Sadra Quers, Odalis's former partner, received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Joel. But instead of reporting Odalis missing or asking for help, Joel simply asked if she had shown up in La Paz to pick up their son. When Sadra said no, Joel casually introduced his story. She had left after a fight. Just 15 minutes later, at 11:45 p.m., Odalis's brother, Brian, called her number. Joel answered the phone again, but this time the story had shifted. Now, he claimed the argument didn't happen on the highway, but in the center of the nearby town of Yoloa. There, he said, Odalis had supposedly gotten into a taxi. By the time Brian arrived at the scene, local patrol units had already discovered the SUV abandoned on the roadside and had Joel Perez in custody. Now sitting in the back of a police cruiser, Joel offered a third version of events. This time he claimed Odalis had run off past the Yolosa Bridge, disappearing into the direction of the river. Odalis's mother, Mabel Quisp, confronted him directly, pleading for the truth. Joel, however, fell back on a familiar excuse. He said he had gaps in his memory, but the story would soon collapse under its own weight. Local residents were questioned, and what they revealed directly contradicted Joel's account. He had claimed that after their argument, he spent hours honking the horn and yelling her name, desperately trying to find her. But neighbors living in nearby houses told investigators that from 8 p.m. to midnight, the entire stretch of highway remained eerily silent. Not a single sound, no engine, no shouting, no horn. These missing 4 hours from the actual time of the incident to the moment he made his first phone call to the family became one of the prosecution's most critical points. While Joel claimed he was searching, witnesses say it was dead silent. No activity at all. Prosecutors believe this time was used to move the body and construct a cover story. Investigators also determined that no taxis had passed through Yoloa during that time frame. Surveillance cameras confirmed that no individual matching Odalis's description was seen leaving the area. The theory that she had willingly left the vehicle unraveled completely. To understand why the claim of her walking off into the jungle raised such immediate suspicion, we have to look at who Odalis Vakiata really was. This wasn't someone who made impulsive or reckless choices. Odalis was known for discipline and pragmatism. At just 28, she had built a stable and respected life in La Paz. Professionally, she was a successful entrepreneur. She ran her own event planning company, specializing in large-scale celebrations and logistical coordination. Her financial independence wasn't just assumed, it was documented. She owned her apartment, paid all her own bills, and that white SUV, later found abandoned, was registered in her name. But more than anything, her life revolved around her 4-year-old son, over whom she had full custody. Odalis was the kind of mother who planned every detail of her son's life. His future was something she guarded with fierce intention. The idea that she would vanish into a dangerous mountain region at night without any ID or a phone, leaving her son behind, wasn't just unlikely, it was unthinkable. Her relationship with her former partner, Sadra Quiro, remained respectful, maintained solely for the well-being of their son. Odalis also had a passion for local travel within Bolivia, favoring short trips, but she always returned on time, never missing a beat in either her personal or professional commitments. She was the kind of person who honored responsibility both to her family and to her business. Nothing in her history pointed to impulsive or destructive behavior. Nothing suggested she'd walk away from her life. The official investigation noted that her ownership of property and management of a business clearly reflected deep integration into society. Odalis wasn't someone on the fringes. She was fully rooted with clear plans and a defined path forward. Everything she had done up until that night pointed to long-term goals, stability, and the care of her son. And for those who truly knew her, Joel Perez's version that she simply took a walk into the night was not just implausible, it was impossible. To understand the role of the man who was last seen with Odalis Vakiata in her final documented hours, investigators had to dig into the background of Joel Sebastian Perez Gonzalez. At the time of the incident in March 2024, Joel was 25 years old. Among acquaintances, he was seen as outgoing, charismatic, and easy to talk to. That charm helped him quickly become part of Odalis's social circle, earning the trust of her friends and gaining a place in her inner world. But once the investigation was underway, a different picture began to emerge. Authorities uncovered details from his past relationships that suggested a pattern of troubling behavior. After Odalis went missing, 2 women who had previously been romantically involved with Joel came forward with formal statements. Both reported experiencing physical and emotional mistreatment during their time with him. One woman revealed that she had planned to file a police report after being physically hurt by Joel, but ultimately backed out after being contacted by his mother, Betty Gonzalez. According to her statement, Betty pleaded with her not to ruin the life of a young man, assuring her it would never happen again. In public, Joel maintained the image of a generous, easygoing partner. He often picked up the tab at bars, organized group trips, and eagerly joined Odalis on her travels. He presented himself as supportive, reliable, a man anyone would want by their side. When the couple made their relationship public in August 2023, Odalis's close friends and family had no idea about Joel's history. These revelations would only come to light after her disappearance and were later included in the case file as potential evidence of his tendency toward aggressive behavior during conflicts. The investigation took a sharp turn once detectives reviewed Joel Perez's digital footprint. While the Vakiata family was still desperately trying to locate Odalis, Joel was in close communication with an active duty police officer, Lieutenant Jose Maria Alanis. Deleted messages were successfully recovered from cloud backups, catching the defense completely off guard. The most damning piece of evidence came from a text exchange between the lieutenant and a civilian intermediary, someone known to both Joel and the officer. In one of the messages, Lieutenant Elaines issued a chilling piece of advice. Tell your version like it's a bedtime story and get as many witnesses as you can. Pay them if you need to. The more you have, the better. This piece of evidence became the turning point in the arrest of Lieutenant Elaine in late April 2024. Investigators confirmed that the officer had been using his law enforcement expertise to advise the primary suspect, Joel Perez, in real time. Ilance's guidance included how to navigate standard interrogation procedures and how to fabricate an alibi using people who would vouch for Joel under false pretenses. It was this behind-the-scenes coaching that explained why Joel's initial statements were oddly detailed and why he was so persistent in directing search teams to false locations during the critical first days of the investigation. The district attorney's office officially classified the lieutenant's actions as complicity and obstruction of justice. The civilian intermediary who received the message was also questioned under oath. His testimony allowed prosecutors to directly connect the officer's instructions with specific changes in Joel Perez's story. This collusion between a sworn officer of the law and the main suspect revealed a chilling attempt to cover up Odalis's disappearance using tactical knowledge from inside the system. The fact that a police officer had encouraged the suspect to buy witnesses sparked national outrage across Bolivia and prompted the Interior Ministry to place the case under tighter federal scrutiny. Without that recovered conversation, the defense could have continued shaping public perception, painting Joel as a victim of circumstance rather than a cold and calculating participant in concealing a serious crime. After the night of March 30th, Joel Perez's actions were no longer his alone. Almost immediately, his powerful inner circle stepped in. Perez's parents held prominent positions in society. His father, Rudy Perez Garcia, was a seasoned criminal defense attorney, and his mother, Betty Gonzalez, was deeply connected within La Paz's healthcare and administrative networks. That social capital quickly became the foundation of his legal defense. From the moment Joel was taken to the precinct, his parents moved in lockstep, building a formidable legal and media barrier around him. Their legal strategy launched immediately. Every point of contact, whether with law enforcement or potential witnesses, was monitored and managed by the family with surgical precision. According to investigators, this was the period when the real shaping of the public narrative began. Information was being filtered and a unified version of events was being carefully crafted. In her public statements, Betty Gonzalez, the mother of Joel Perez, worked steadily to present her son as a calm, well-mannered individual. She highlighted his academic achievements and described him as someone who had been raised right. These portrayals stood in stark contrast to the testimonies of Joel's former partners who spoke of controlling behavior and emotional outbursts. But early on, it was Betty's version that dominated public opinion. Meanwhile, the defense team began assembling a foundation to support the theory that Odal had left voluntarily. They used every available procedural tool to challenge law enforcement's actions, gaining time, adjusting statements, and reshaping the story as the investigation progressed. Once Odal's mother filed a formal report alleging a serious crime, Joel's parents took on a much more active role. They weren't just funding the legal defense, they were orchestrating it. Witnesses later described how the family took steps to block forensic reenactments and delay official inquiries. Around Joel, a tight circle began to form, what some investigators later called a family fortress. Within this protective bubble, the facts surrounding what really happened that night in Yungas became increasingly difficult for law enforcement to penetrate. But that protective wall started to crack after a more thorough forensic inspection of the white SUV, the very same one found parked on the side of that mountain road. At first glance, the vehicle seemed clean. Joel had even used that to his advantage, claiming it as proof that nothing out of the ordinary had happened. But when crime scene investigators used luminol, the picture changed. Under special lighting and chemical tests, they detected biological traces, bloodstains that had been carefully scrubbed using cleaning agents. This wasn't a surface-level wipe-down. Someone had tried hard to erase what had happened inside that car. When confronted with the evidence, Joel didn't deny the presence of blood. Instead, he offered a new explanation. He claimed that during the trip, Odalis had experienced a physiological issue that required them to stop at a store to buy hygiene products. That explanation was logged into the official record and became the subject of intense scrutiny by the investigative team. Investigators retraced the couple's route and questioned the owner of the store. Joel claimed they had stopped at that night, but the store owner firmly denied that any such purchase had been made and went further, stating that he hadn't seen either of them at all that evening. Then came the final blow, the forensic report. Blood spatter experts examined microscopic droplets found on the interior fabric of the SUV. The pattern and distribution told a story that couldn't be explained by any natural process. According to the report, the droplets were classified as impact spatter, tiny high-velocity patterns that form during physical altercations in confined spaces. In short, signs of a violent struggle inside the car. Adding even more weight against Joel Perez's version was the analysis of Odalis's phone. Joel had claimed that after their argument she called him in a panic, saying she was being followed by an unknown man. But phone records told a very different story. According to GPS data, Odalis's phone had never left the SUV's glove compartment. It remained inside the vehicle under Joel's control the entire time. There were no outgoing calls, no location changes, and no activity that supported Joel's story. The mounting evidence, the hidden blood traces, the false witness account, and the impossibility of the phone call prompted a reclassification of the case. Prosecutors no longer saw this as a disappearance. From that point forward, it was officially considered an act of intentional aggression carried out under circumstances that ruled out the presence of any third party. But it was a digital forensic audit of Joel Perez's own phone that would change everything. Working under orders from the district attorney's office, a forensic IT specialist recovered Joel's search history from March 29, 2024, exactly one day before the couple left for their trip. While Odalis was planning their weekend, Joel was searching Google for topics that prosecutors would later argue reflected intent. Searches included terms like morgue, femicide, and articles related to Bolivia's Law 348, which addresses acts of aggression toward women. But the most damning search of all was this: how many shovels of dirt fit in a wheelbarrow? Joel tried to dismiss it all as old history, claims that these searches weren't recent, but the forensic analyst confirmed the exact timestamps. The queries were made on a Friday, the day before they left for Yungas. The data extraction report also revealed a suspicious transaction. Money had been transferred from Odalis Vakiata's bank account to Joel Perez's after she had already gone silent and stopped responding to messages or calls. Joel claimed the payment was a debt repayment. Why? But the timing raised serious red flags. The transfer took place during the very window when he was supposedly concerned about her disappearance. A digital forensic audit confirmed that attempts to delete browser history were carried out by Joel after the incident in the mountains, strongly suggesting an effort to cover up evidence. One search from his phone stood out more than the rest. How many shovels of dirt fit in a wheelbarrow? A query made the day before. Odalis supposedly walked off on her own. That single piece of information became a cornerstone in the prosecution's case. These findings were accepted by the court as admissible evidence. They had been recovered using proper digital forensics procedures and were backed by independent mobile carrier billing records. Further analysis of Joel's search history revealed inquiries about morgue locations and specific legal terminology, all pointing to a calculated effort to erase any trace of a violent act in the remote mountain terrain. Together, the pieces formed a disturbing profile. A suspect who acted deliberately with premeditation and appeared to be attempting to benefit from a tragedy. As the investigation progressed, it became increasingly clear that the defense had access to inside information, often learning about developments in the case before they were officially documented by law enforcement. Through careful analysis of messaging apps and communication logs, investigators eventually traced the leak to someone close: Daniela N., a longtime friend of Odalis. Daniela had known Odalis for nearly 9 years. After Odalis went missing, she stayed close to Mabel Quisper, Odalis's mother, and actively participated in the search efforts. She was seen as a trusted confidant, someone the family could rely on during an unimaginable crisis. But investigators discovered that Daniela was also part of a private WhatsApp group that included Joel Perez and several people from his inner circle. The information shared by the Vakiata family, updates, suspicions, and details of conversations with law enforcement was being passed straight to Joel's defense team. This early access allowed the defense to stay one step ahead, adjusting testimony, preemptively preparing for police interviews, and shaping their legal strategy before prosecutors could react. In December 2024, after cross-referencing chat logs and eyewitness accounts, Daniela N. was taken into custody. She was charged with complicity and obstruction of justice. That moment finally explained why for months the investigation had been met with calculated resistance at every turn. In December 2024, investigators gained access to an audio recording made by one of Joel Perez's close friends, Israel. A forensic audio analysis confirmed that the voice message had been sent to a private WhatsApp group on April 1, 2024, just one day after Odalis Vakiata disappeared. In the recording, Israel shares disturbing details that had not yet been made public or disclosed to official search teams. He claims that Odalis had been found deceased and even describes the condition in which the body was allegedly discovered, including mention of bound hands. He refers to the incident as Joel Perez's mistake, using an intimate nickname that suggested both familiarity and first-hand knowledge among those in the group chat. It's important to note that the message also referenced possible evidence of sexual aggression, but those claims remained unverified rumors within the chat, as no body had been officially recovered at that time. While prosecutors did not use the voice message as direct evidence of the cause of death, it became a critical piece of the puzzle, demonstrating that Joel Perez's inner circle already knew Odalis was dead at a time when she was still listed as a missing person by authorities. Based on the content of that message, police arrested Israel and 3 other individuals. The recording directly contradicted Joel's public statement that Odalis had simply walked away from the vehicle. The fact that his friends were already discussing the condition of a body within 24 hours of the incident became a pivotal indicator of coordinated concealment. It suggested that the people closest to Joel weren't just bystanders. They were actively engaged in misleading investigators, aware of how the story would likely end from the very beginning. Prosecutors classified these actions as evidence tampering and the withholding of critical information in an ongoing investigation. Israel's voice message officially transformed what had been seen as a friend group into a set of persons of interest, whose silence had delayed the pursuit of justice for 9 long months. The final reconstruction of events on March 30, 2024 was built on data gathered from GPS tracking embedded in the SUV, along with cell tower signal analysis. The trip to the festival in Takana, which Odalis had originally planned to attend alone, became a shared outing after Joel Perez insisted on joining her. Photos taken earlier that day confirmed they were together, Odalis at the wheel smiling. But things took a darker turn on the way back to Lee's. According to digital records, the turning point came just after 5 p.m. as the couple passed through the Los Yungas region. There, the SUV made a prolonged and unplanned stop in an isolated area far from towns, homes, or surveillance cameras. That stop lasted over 2 hours, far longer than what would be needed for something as simple as dropping someone off. It was remote, it was off the grid, and it marked the moment when everything changed. According to the prosecution, it was during this window of time at that isolated stop in the mountains that a violent encounter took place inside the vehicle, leaving behind the blood evidence discovered later. Following the stop, the vehicle's movement changed drastically. Joel Perez took over driving, a shift confirmed by seat weight sensors and alterations in driving behavior captured through onboard telemetry. The SUV resumed its path toward Lee's, but as established earlier in the case, Odalis's phone showed no further activity or movement inside the cabin. It stayed completely still. From there, Joel began staging a cover-up. He started calling Odalis's family, making a series of anxious-sounding calls in an apparent attempt to construct an alibi. But GPS records told a different story. They pinpointed the exact time and location of the stop in a remote, uninhabited area, making it impossible for Odalis to have simply walked off the highway as Joel had claimed. Even more damning, the data showed that during these so-called worried phone calls, Odalis's phone was still located right next to Joel's. The devices had not separated at any point, directly contradicting his claims that she left in an unknown direction. These telemetry results became critical. They offered irrefutable satellite-confirmed evidence that both individuals were present at the site of the crime during the exact window of time it likely occurred. The sequence, an isolated stop, a change of drivers, and a string of misleading phone calls formed the foundation for the final charge, femicide. As of early 2026, Joel Perez remains in custody along with his parents, Rudy Perez and Betty Gonzalez, Lieutenant Alanis, and Daniela N. The Bolivian prosecutor's office has submitted 130 pieces of evidence and testimony from 33 witnesses classifying the group's actions as femicide and obstruction of justice. Despite overwhelming evidence, including messages from private chat groups, Joel Perez has refused to disclose the location of Odalis's body. Officially, Odalis Vakiata Quispe remains missing. Her son now lives with the Vakiata family. Relatives say the boy still reacts whenever he hears the sound of car engines passing by. Every time a vehicle rumbles down the street, he runs to the window and calls it by name. Jack, the name he gave his mother's SUV. In interviews, Mabel Quispe, Odalis's mother, has said the family has only one goal left: to recover her daughter's remains and give her a proper burial. Odalis's story has since sparked a national outcry in Bolivia, fueling large-scale protests against gender-based crimes. Every year on May 22nd, her birthday, hundreds gather to light candles in her memory. She has become a symbol of the fight for justice in cases where corruption and complicity delay the truth. And until her body is found, this case remains an open wound, a tragic reminder of a life lost on a quiet, fog-covered road in the Yungas Mountains.